The best teams in America are playing like the best teams in America. Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State. Are they separating? Are they separating? Man, was Bama good today. Ohio State, strong tonight. Michigan, of course, did what they had to do and were clearly the better team against Penn State, although the term total domination was thrown out there today a few times on national television, and that's not the case. That was not the case. I'll be kind. I'm not going to throw out names. And then certainly, probably the most impressive to me, man, that Georgia football team. Wow. It was like they took all of those 2021 and 22 draftees that are going to be playing for their various NFL teams tomorrow, and they allowed them to suit up one more time for the Bulldogs and play tonight against Ole Miss. Wow. Georgia was awesome. Offensive line, awesome, dominant. They were the most impressive, and they were the most impactful, and they were the biggest reason why Georgia ran away and stomped Ole Miss, the offensive line. Amarius Mims was back after sitting out against Florida. Carson Beck, as Holly Rose said after the game in interviewing Carson Beck on the field, you don't look like you've played. Your uniform's completely clean. Yes. 300 yards rushing, 8.6 yards per carry. The defense, phenomenal, despite missing some players. Alabama, Jalen Milroe. This is what I would love to be able to do concerning these type situations when everybody out there, or many people out there, not everyone, jumps the gun, rushes to judgment. Jalen Milroe was horrible. Of course. Yes, he's terrible. He can't play. What's Alabama doing? Nick Saban doesn't know what he's talking about. Doesn't know what he's doing. Where are those people now? Where are they? Jalen Milroe might be the best deep ball thrower in college football. And he's an elite athlete. There is a reason he is the starting quarterback at Alabama. I should take our little wrap-up show that we do here each and every Saturday night, go back to the Alabama-Texas weekend and take what I had to say. I should pull that where I say, yeah, he didn't look good. He made some mistakes. They're going to figure out, though, how to utilize him. They're going to teach him. He's going to continue to advance and grow and progress. Plus, they're going to come up with an identity at Alabama. I guarantee it. And they're going to utilize him the right way. They're going to figure it out. Voila. Here we are. Alabama is Alabama. Stifling defense, great defense. Yes, we saw it on display in Lexington. They're a good football team. Kentucky's a decent football team. Ohio State tonight just laid in on Michigan State. Kyle McCord looked comfortable. They got Travion Henderson his reps, then got him out of the game. The Ohio State defense. Yes, I know Michigan State's not good, but they've been competitive. So Ohio State did pretty much to Michigan State what Michigan did. Of course, early in the day at noon Eastern time, the game of the day in regards to not the best game, the most important matchup, Penn State, Michigan. Once again, James Franklin, see you. Have a nice offseason. Go back to the drawing board. Try to figure it out. Although I do think Drew Aller is going to be a really good quarterback. He's got his detractors. He's 19 years old. This is his first starting season. J.J. McCarthy was able to have more of a transition into the starting role. I know that they did that to a certain extent with Drew Aller under Sean Clifford last year. But Penn State, man, they are just in a tough spot. Penn State going back to 2017. So this is 7 seasons of college football since they went to the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten championship that year in 2016. They are going to be going to a New Year's Six bowl game again. This is going to be 5 in 8 years, right? They missed one, I think they only missed 2. They went in 2017, Fiesta, 2019, Cotton, 2021, or 2022, Rose, then this one. So it's going to be like 5 in 8 years, 4 in 7 years. But they've played more meaningless football games in mid to late November, the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, whenever they're done with Ohio State and now Michigan. It used to just be Ohio State. Now it's Michigan too. Once they're done with those two, they're out of the race and they're just playing for wins and to finish in the top 10. So that looks good. It's a nice record. Looks good. They'll win a major bowl game possibly, but man, they're not winning championships. And the gap between them and Ohio State and Michigan it's not huge, enormous. It's not. Things change quickly, but they're not getting it done. James Franklin is not getting it done. And he's almost in the Jimbo Fisher class. No. He's not Jimbo Fisher. He's better than that. He's done much better than that. He's done a really good job at Penn State. He's just where he is. Now he's going to be saved possibly by the 12-team playoff. All right. We've got Oregon and USC going at it tonight. And let's check out the scores before we go to some calls. In progress right now. Oh, man. Tonight's lineup of college football, and I'm not just talking about championship level teams. I'm talking about just fun games, good matchups. I saw a ton of them. And this was one of them right here. Duke, North Carolina. Duke, a 13-point underdog in this game. That was the easiest pick I made. That was they're going to overtime. Easiest pick that I made this weekend was taking Duke in those points. Who in the world is giving North Carolina points over anybody these days? So Duke and North Carolina with a third-string quarterback going to overtime at UNC. Arizona State leads UCLA 10-0. That game has moved into the third quarter. UCLA, where's your offense? What's going on here? Wow, no score for UCLA in the third quarter at home at the Rose Bowl against Arizona State. So you're probably hearing a smattering of boos echo around the empty Rose Bowl right now. We've got Boise State leading New Mexico 29-14. That's in the second quarter, 2 minutes left in the first half. Iowa State with the lead against BYU. Iowa State has put themselves together a pretty decent team when all is said and done about the suspensions due to the betting, the gambling, and having to suspend number one running back, starting quarterback, and others. And then again, Oregon, end of the first quarter on top of USC 13-7. If you're more interested in like specific post-game shows, we've got the West Virginia show going on right now on the West Virginia channel. The Mountaineers got their noses bloodied by Oklahoma tonight. San Jose State leads Fresno State. I got to say, our guy Steve Merrill, if you're not a YouTube channel member or a Patreon member, my goodness, I got to tell you, Steve Merrill, I questioned him again on this one, and I even said this to him when he said San Jose State take them against Fresno State. I'm like, well, they're not as good as Fresno State. Why? Yeah, because he said so. It's 18-5 against the spread. Air Force, Hawaii. Rainbows lead at 7-0. All right, I'm not going to go through all the finals. Looks like LSU was on it tonight with Jaden Daniels, the quarterback, 372 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's passing. Oh, my goodness. Jaden Daniels had 234 rushing and 2 touchdowns. Oh, my goodness. All right, here we go. Let's go to the phone lines. Talk college football with all of you. And why don't you do some shopping? Hey, let's do some shopping. Somebody mentioned Christmas shopping when they called the other day, and I was like, seriously? Some Christmas shopping. I know that our little group here, our family and so forth, somebody had determined for us that we're going to do a secret Santa kind of thing. So absolutely, I'll send in my requests. All right. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. But when you shop on Amazon. If you do, I'm not promoting Amazon in any such way, but you're already on Amazon. So when you do, please use the link that we provide in the description section. While you're in that description section, also grab that SEC and Big 12 channel links. Check them out. Please subscribe. If you just want to blindly subscribe because you enjoy what we do here at the Voice of College Football, just understand that you are helping us build the entire deal. And you might just be like a USC fan and just want to support there. That's great. I understand that. But if you want all of it to exist or any part of it to exist, then just understand it all works together. If I'm not around in a year, then we won't have a USC channel. All right. So please, again, Big 12 channel, SEC channels just launched at the beginning of the year. Need some subs. Need to get to 1,000. 50,000, 100,000, all of that business. All right, here we go. Let's go to the phone lines. We got JR on the line.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, JR.
Oh, well, you want to talk about Michigan at all?
I will talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I think that Michigan should be worried about Ohio State without Jim Harbaugh, because I think Jim Harbaugh in coaching in game is one of the biggest differences for a team that doesn't call plays, if that makes sense.
That doesn't. Oh,
like of coaches who don't call.
Yeah,
plays,
coaches that don't call plays. Yeah.
Like
and why do you think that?
Coaches that makes a difference for their team.
Why do you think that?
I just think that the team really rallies around him, and I think that their culture is really built around it makes it sound arrogant. I'm not trying to say he's arrogant, but I do think that he is just the kind of guy that builds the culture kind of around his personality and who he is and the selflessness and all those things. And as much as I feel like that team was really motivated after not having him there, I feel like if I was a Michigan fan, I'd be really, really praying that injunction, whatever it is, or restraining order goes through, because he's going to make a big difference on November 25th for that game against Ohio State.
Yeah, well, that should be a heck of a game. And I don't disagree with you. I don't necessarily agree with you to the point that you're taking this, but I don't disagree with you. I just don't think that there's a lot of evidence for it. They've played 4 games without him. They've been just fine. And now they've played their first game against a real opponent and they were just fine. So I'm not discounting that, because the head coach is extremely important. But they obviously have already worked through this, through the process of what they need to do in the 3 games that he missed early in the season. Therefore, they were very much prepared for what happened today. Mm-hmm. And it worked extremely well.
Yeah, I try to look at the 4 games that he hasn't been there, and I take the cheating stuff out of it, because that's just so difficult to quantify. I don't even know if you really can, but I look at the 4 games he wasn't there, and I feel like those, one of them was their hardest game of the season, and 3 of them were 3 of their easier games of the season, and I think that's when the team looked the worst this season. Was when Jim Harbaugh wasn't there. I mean, when they played Rutgers, yeah, they struggled a little bit, but I also think Rutgers is a better team than people give them credit for. But they dominated Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, all of those. They dominated them, just completely pummeled them. And then you look at East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Penn State. I just didn't think they looked like, mainly on offense, the complete offensive team that they have been in some of those other games, which is, of course, hard to quantify because levels of competition.
Yeah, and that's why I have difficult with it. Penn State is so far beyond everybody else on that schedule. It's not even close. Like we saw Iowa play today, and Iowa's clearly now the fourth best team in the conference, and obviously Penn State just completely trucked them.
Yeah.
So I have difficulty with that just because Michigan, that was a close, it was not a close game today. It was a competitive game. It was, from a yardage standpoint, it was close. Michigan obviously pulled away and controlled the game to a certain extent in the second half. And I think that had more to do with their defensive line. I think their defensive line was by far the distinguishing factor in that game against Penn State.
Yeah.
And that Penn State is just limited on offense and not able to threaten down the field like they're going to see in a couple weeks. So I'm not discounting that. They, in a game like they're going to face in 2 weeks, you want to have all hands on deck and everybody involved, especially the guy. But they seem to be coming through it okay.
Yeah, that's true. It is just so hard to quantify with them. Do you think they'll move up in the playoff rankings now that they've played somebody, or you think that Georgia's wins and Ohio State's wins keep them in front?
Oh, well, yeah, I don't try to predict what other people are thinking. I don't really care what the playoff committee has to say. Like they're the ones that count. I'm not saying that they count. Yeah. My rankings don't count. Theirs count, but I don't know what I haven't even listened to anything they've had to say. We've been doing a show here during the selection, so I don't even know. I make it a point to go back and actually I'm on the conference call with the committee, and I haven't even taken part of that to hear what they have to say. And I always say, man, I want to hear what they have to say, and then I just don't even do it. But I get that link in my email. But I would think that Ohio State was not in their minds like this overwhelming number one.
Yeah.
I think Georgia had to be very close, and then Michigan obviously very close as well. And I'm thinking I'm going to take a shot that Georgia is going to be number one, that they're going to elevate what Georgia did tonight. Georgia might have played as good a team as Michigan did. I don't know. I think Penn State's better, but not by much. And Georgia just, my word, they
took them to town.
Yeah, they just in every way possible after the first couple drives of the game. And so I think Georgia's going to jump to number one. I think they're going to continue to honor, especially since Ohio State's starting to dominate teams. I think they're going to honor Ohio State's Notre Dame win. And they both look the same against Penn State pretty much, that they're going to continue to honor a better win outside the conference and keep Ohio State at number 2. That would be my guess. And Michigan's going to stay at 3. That would be my guess. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's so interesting for that last game of the year because, like last year, Ohio State lost, and Michigan they won that game and they deserved it. And Ohio State fell, looked like they weren't going to get in the playoffs, but then they were, long and behold, because of USC not being able to win, able to get into the playoffs. And so I always wonder, will that what does the losing situation look like for whoever loses? What is their path to get back in? Because obviously they'll be relying on somebody else to lose in order for them to get back in. But yeah.
Well, they're actually, yeah, you're right. They need some help. They need Washington to lose. Again, everyone, meaning the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game,
right,
needs Washington to lose. And then you just don't know how they're going to be judged against other one-loss teams. I think the committee, I certainly believe that Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, and Georgia are the 4 best teams in the country.
Yeah.
And I think that Florida State, Washington, Oregon, and Texas are really good. and I believe that they're close. I don't think like those 4 would just blow them away, but I do believe that those are the 4 best teams in the country. And Florida State's going to have to go undefeated. That was talked about during their game today. They didn't look that good against Miami, and a backup freshman quarterback today. I watched every play of that game. They're a good team, but I don't think they're on the level of those other 4. And Texas struggled with TCU. Now, I did not see one play of that game tonight, but they only won by 3 points against TCU. So Texas continues to struggle. And everybody's going to have a struggle, but they're struggling almost every week against Houston, TCU, Kansas State. Kansas State's a good team. But Washington, I know Utah's a good team, but without Cam Rising, with a limited offense, they were at home against Utah. They barely won that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we saw who the best teams in the country were today.
Yeah, that's the thing that kills me with like because I think you and I talked about it at the CFP rankings show that you do with like Alabama. Alabama clearly looks like, if not top 4, a top 5 team right now in college football. But they're never going to surpass Texas. I guess I shouldn't say never. It's not likely they're going to surpass Texas without Texas losing. And even though Florida State, I don't think Florida State looks that good. I mean, yes, they're undefeated, but they've struggled with teams like Pitt. Now they ended up beating them by 3 scores, but still, struggled with them into halftime, and they didn't blow them out like they should have. And then recently, like you mentioned, Miami and Washington, I think they have a really, really good offense. I just don't think they have the championship caliber defense. It goes back to the whole that's kind of why you want 12-team playoffs, is because, in my mind, why you want the 12-team playoffs is because there are 4 teams that seem to be the best, but that you're not going to guarantee those 4 teams are going to be the playoff teams, because they might struggle earlier on in the season, like Alabama did. So, all right, I know you got other callers, so I'll hop off and let them get on. So thanks for talking, Mark. Appreciate it.
Well, it's a great point, JR. I appreciate you stopping by.
Yep. Bye.
Yeah, so obviously what JR is talking about right there is that number one, the best teams in the country may not have the best resume, because the resume starts with the week 1, but you can't ignore what's happened even in September. But you want the best teams on the field in December, January. Also, like he was talking about right there, let's say I'm right, and those are the 4 best teams in the country: Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Well, the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game, especially if it's Michigan, they would have a win against Penn State. And either one of them, though, would be in a bad situation. Not that they couldn't make it, just like Ohio State did last year, but if Florida State runs the table in the ACC and Washington runs the table in the Pac-12, there you go. Those are the 2 spots. Big Ten champ gets the other one, the SEC champ the other one, if not a second spot. Then I'm not even talking about Texas. So the Ohio State-Michigan loser could be one of the 4 best teams, and they could be out. Alabama's got a loss if they lose to Georgia, and look at what Georgia is building right now. Look at what they're showing us. If Alabama loses that game, they could be one of the 4 best teams in the country. Well, 11-2, out. So it's not necessarily the 4 best teams. It's the 4 teams that earned it. All right. Jackson, what's going on tonight, sir?
It's nothing much. Just getting through another college football Saturday. How's it going with you, Mark?
I am doing well. I'm trying to find this Duke, North Carolina game here.
Man, it is crazy over today, man. I will say I saw something from Aaron Torres and Big Game Boomer, and they were talking about how James Franklin is the Big Ten version of Mark Richt. What's your take when hearing that?
Well, I think that I know exactly what they're talking about. It's not like it's not obvious as to why they're saying that. I don't see things as that maybe as harsh as some people do. Like, I felt like telling somebody, and I have before, it wasn't like I was timid and didn't want to tell them. I just didn't feel like exchanging any more messages on Twitter tonight. But, you know, I forget who was called trash on it was ridiculous. It was JJ McCarthy's trash. I saw that tonight. JJ McCarthy's trash.
That's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater there, isn't it?
It's like, and I've heard a number of times this year, Ohio State's trash. Okay, well, if they're trash, there's only like 2 teams, 3 teams in the country that aren't trash. JJ McCarthy's trash. My response was, well, he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the country. My point being that these people are really good at what they do. Like, would most of us want someone following us, or a group of people, or millions of people following us around at our jobs and telling us that we suck and we're trash at our jobs? And I guarantee that most of us do not do our jobs as well as those people do their jobs. So Mark Richt, well, for one thing, Mark Richt at Georgia never coached in an era in which he could get into a playoff. He had to be in the top 2. Yeah. For one thing, he didn't have that advantage. I think his last year at Georgia was 2014. That was the first year of the playoff. So he didn't have a playoff at Georgia. And I really believe that we've seen with Mark Richt's health in the last few years that when he went to Miami, I think a lot of that was already starting to set in, and he really wasn't at his best at Miami. He did a nice job there. He recruited well. He got them to a certain place. He made them a much better football team than they were, but he wasn't anywhere close to being at his best. So he could have played in all sorts of playoffs. 2007, 2002, 2012. He could have played in playoffs during his career. So no, he didn't technically get it done at Georgia.
That is true.
I would certainly be curious to go back and look at his record against top 5, top 10, top 25 teams. I'm sure it's considerably better than James Franklin.
Yeah. But I will say, do you think if Michigan winds up winning out the rest of the regular season, does the coaching candidacy of Sharon Moore get a little bit of a little fire, so to speak, like a little bit of a little stock up?
Oh, absolutely it does. Look at although it's a bit different because Ryan Day had to actually coach the team for 3 weeks every day without Urban Meyer in 2018, but he won the 3 games. Ohio State looked relatively good. They didn't play anyone that good. They played TCU, as you well know, but I think that showed that, okay, well, he can handle this. And I think it's the same thing with Sharon Moore.
Yeah. I saw him today. He was pretty fantastic today, and especially that post-game interview. He had a lot of emotions breaking out today. I was pretty sad to see Kansas lose against Texas Tech, though. I mean, their backup quarterback getting hurt in the second quarter, Jason Bean.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was pretty sad. But they did their best, and I do hope they win against K-State next week. But one game I was really thinking about was Central Florida, Oklahoma State, the perfect hangover game for Oklahoma State. And I've said on the chat before this season that Central Florida is the Jekyll and Hyde team of the Big 12. 1 week, they're falling apart against Baylor. This week, they were fantastic against Oklahoma State.
That was the last pick I made in my predictions. Made all my predictions, and I originally put Oklahoma State to win. And then I stopped and I thought, yeah, that's man, that point spread's only 2.5, and there's got to be a reason for that because Oklahoma State's considerably better, or they've played better. But man, UCF went to Oklahoma; they played well there. I just thought, this is a letdown moment right here. So I pulled the trigger on UCF pulling off the upset.
Smart man.
Well, I hit some of them. It's like throwing darts.
Well, I mean, the thing I know with Malzahn is when nobody's talking about him, he thrives. But when everybody talks about him, he's a disaster. I saw where Arkansas fans today on the Tush Talk were tired. They were like, some of them were saying, "Oh, we want Malzahn." I'm like, I don't think you want him as your Nets head coach. I mean, I know you're venting about that blowout loss to Auburn, but I'm not so sure you're going to want Malzahn as your Nets head coach.
Well, yeah, Gus Malzahn's tenure at Auburn was basically one great season, one really good season that fell apart at the end, of course, in the SEC title game and the bowl game against UCF. And then every other year, as you're mentioning here, they really underachieved. If you would go through all their years, so his first year was obviously remarkable.
Yeah.
They were 3-9 the year before, 0-8 in the SEC. He takes them within 7-8 seconds of winning the national title. And then after that, almost every year, if we pulled up their preseason rankings, they were supposed to be a top 10 or 15 team in that range. 8-5, 8-5, had a 7-6. Then they had that 2017 run, of course. They beat Georgia, they beat Bama. Then they got blasted in the SEC title game. So they were close. Another couple down, not horrible years, but again, he had a 9-4 year in 2019, and he had a decent run at Auburn, but they were barely over 500 in the SEC. So I tend to agree with you, but I'm trying to weigh who's a better coach, Gus Malzahn or Sam Pittman.
That is true, and I'm just kind of like thinking about like the other coaching candidates. If Arkansas was to decide tomorrow is Black Sunday for Pittman, not saying they will, but knowing how SEC country is, you never know with them.
And whatever the final was today, 48-10, something like that.
Yep.
That
48-10 Auburn, Arkansas.
Because how does Auburn score 48 points against anyone?
Yeah, Hugh Freeze been doing pretty well so far. I mean, it's not exactly like past years, but those next few years at Auburn, I'd hate to be going against Auburn, especially 2 weeks from now. That's nerve-wracking. Playing spoiler against Bama. Oof. But on the bright side for Oklahoma State, they still are in the second place spot for the Big 12. They just kind of have to pull for BYU right now, or they got to pull for Texas against Iowa State.
So, what do we have here? We've got I'll pull the standings up here. So they go to 5-2 with the loss. Oklahoma moves up to 5-2. And Kansas State won today. They're 5-2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But Oklahoma State's got the head-to-head win over both of them.
Yes. And so now with 2 games left, Oklahoma State has who?
They got BYU on rivalry week, and they got Houston next Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, Houston's going to be the last road game, which that looks like it's going to be a cinch. But then again, you never know in Big 12 country. Things get pretty wild. Mm-mm-mm.
All right, Jackson. Anything else?
That's about all for tonight. Just want to discuss a little bit of Big 12 football, a little bit of what was going on with Michigan, Penn State, and how about that Bama victory over the Syracuse of the SEC? Oh,
Okay.
man. That was a big, big win. I love that performance from Milroe.
Very good. All right, Jackson. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me on, Mark.
All right. Yes, there's the Big 12. Texas survives again. They're at 6-1 in the conference, and we've got OK State, Oklahoma, Kansas State, all 5-2. Oklahoma State beat both Oklahoma and Kansas State. Oklahoma and Kansas State do not play. Iowa State's got a chance tonight, and they've got a lead to go to 5-2 as well. So all these head-to-heads are only going to matter to a certain degree if there's more than a two-way tie. Then it becomes all sorts of common opponents and record against the next highest placed team. And I have sorted through that and posted videos weeks ago, and maybe we'll dive back into that this week. Since we're down to 2 weeks left, we'll dive into all the scenarios. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got Michigan Man here.
What up, Mark?
What's going on?
What's up, man? Two shocking results today to me, man, was Northwestern. Really just, for the most part, dominating Wisconsin at Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. What in the world?
Did you see that coming? They were up 24-3 in the first half?
I saw a loss coming. I didn't see that coming. No.
That was wild to me. And then UCF over Oklahoma State.
Well, I did pick that
blowout. Did you see it going down like that?
I didn't pick 45-3 or whatever it was, but I picked UCF to win.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. I thought Ohio State looked good, man. I know it's Michigan State. I get that, but still, I mean, you want to see. When was the last time Michigan State was within like 3 scores of Ohio State? I feel like it's been eons. I feel like it's been forever, man.
2016, they played a close game.
That is wild. I remember
Michigan State had a they just went to the playoff the year before, and then they went 3-9, but they've lost like a bunch of one-score games, and they only lost to Ohio State 17-16. But since then, like the next year, Sparty was a top 10 team. They came to Columbus in 2017 and lost 48-3. Mel Tucker's first team, or not his first team, that was the COVID year, but the next year they were in the top 10, and the game was 49-0 at half. Yeah, Ohio State's dragged them around pretty well recently.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think Marvin Harrison should be in New York just based off how important he is to the offense.
Yeah, it's a great point.
I mean, he is, if I had to put a percentage on it, and it'd be obviously a random percentage, he's like, I put him at 55-60% of that offense. And that might even be low. And just based off that, I think he should be in New York. When you're that vital to a team that's ranked in the top 4, I don't know how you're not in New York.
No, it's a great point. I'm with you. Yeah, you got to go beyond the stats, and hopefully people are actually paying attention and thinking it through.
Yeah, no doubt. On to my game, man. Do you remember, I would have to look this up. When is the last time a team beat a top 10 team not passing the ball one time in the second half? Like, when is that happening?
Hopefully somebody's researching that right now or already has. I saw that's the first time Michigan hasn't thrown the ball in the second half since 1980s. No, it was their least pass attempts since 1987, but they probably threw the ball in the second half in that game.
Yeah, 30. So I thought it was like, I think it was 30 straight runs.
Yes.
After 7 minutes in the second quarter.
They threw the ball once on that play action that was a pass interference. So it was did not count as a pass, but yes.
Yeah, no, that's wild to me. And, Penn State's rush defense was only allowing 60 yards per game before that. So for them to me, the impressive part about that game was for them to just line up over and over and over again. They knew what was coming. They were in heavy personnel for pretty much the whole second half.
Yep.
And couldn't stop it. It reminded me a lot of 2021, some of 2022. I don't think the O-line's quite as good as those O-lines, but just the way they play today, it just reminded me of some of those games.
Maybe I saw it a little bit different than you did, though. I saw it more as not that Michigan wasn't moving the ball, but that they kind of went into a shell. And once it went to 17-9, so they go to halftime, they're up 14-9. They kick a field goal, they go to 17-9. And I'd have to go back to see how they set that up, that field goal drive to get to 17-9. They obviously didn't throw the ball.
But
after that,
go ahead.
I'm just saying I didn't. It is impressive. I'm not taking anything away from what they did, but they were basically just getting a few first downs and kept just punting the ball. Is what was going on. It wasn't like they were moving the ball for touchdowns or even field goals.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I looked at it was on those first couple drives, the pass rush was getting to JJ.
Yeah.
And Sharon Moore made the decision, look, let's go heavy personnel. Let's see if it works. And the two drives following that, when they made that adjustment, was 2 straight touchdowns. So I just felt like they were like, look, we can run on them with this heavy personnel. The right tackle's getting abused. We're going to stick with this. We're going to use JJ in the run game. And until they can really stop it, and also their offense isn't really doing anything, let's play ball control. We trust our defense. And let's churn out these yards. That's what I saw.
Well, exactly. Yeah, once they got the Donovan Edwards touchdown, like I looked at it at halftime, and the Penn State defense did pretty well on Corum and Edwards for 11 of 14 of their carries, but the 3 were huge. Corum had a 44-yarder down the sideline. Edwards had 2 like roughly 20, 22-yard runs. So that's being effective in my estimation, even though Penn State's was stifling them most of the time. If you get 3 chunk running plays out of 14 carries, that's too many for the defense. And they led 14-3. Thought it was stupid that James Franklin went for 2. Anyway, they score a touchdown. It's 14-9. And then after that, once it was 17-9, Michigan I agree with what they did to a certain extent. I'm thinking, okay, they're relying on their defense. Penn State's downfield passing is no threat. Their running can be only so much of a threat. They're not going to run the ball 75 yards down their throats for a touchdown. So yeah, they're risk averse. But I did think it was kind of strange. For example, there was a series of plays like when Penn State should have flipped the field, they punted it down to the 3, and Michigan ran twice, obviously, because they were running 30 consecutive times at that point. But they get to like a 3rd and 7, and they don't let JJ throw the ball. And I'm thinking,
yeah. So my view of that is that's Jim Harbaugh not being there. That's my opinion. I think if Jim Harbaugh's there, people want to talk about. I heard earlier in the call, someone was talking about you said something about Jim Harbaugh not being there. To me, Jim Harbaugh, you gotta realize he's coached. The other coaches have coached Michigan. in the all-time weak non-conference that we had. This is a whole nother level. He could have coached those games. They could have won those games fine. You have a new head coach on the sideline in a very high-pressure big game. And to me, part of the play calling that got super conservative was the fact Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline. I personally believe if Jim Harbaugh was on the sideline, they don't go into as much of a show. They probably still run the ball a lot, but I don't think they go into as much of a show.
Okay.
That's how I view that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, but I agree. Just because I'm thinking, I get it why you're doing this. You don't have field position. They're not doing anything. They're not a threat downfield offensively. You trust your defense. They even a couple times picked up like a 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8 running play for a first down. I thought it was a really good play call. Well, of course it was because it worked. But early in that sequence, when they stopped throwing, when they had a 3rd and 10, and they lined up 2 tight ends, they went heavy on the right with 2 tight ends, and they just had JJ run like a sweep, and they ran for 13 yards for a first down. So I get it, but at the same time, I'm thinking all it takes is one play by Penn State's offense or a couple plays and one score, and
I'm with you.
You're looking at a tie ball game, and you're making your defense continue to defend, this half of the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm not saying I agree with the way it went down. I think the reasoning why it went down was because he's on the sideline. He's never coached a big game ever as a head coach.
Yeah.
He's also the O-line coach. He's the offensive coordinator. He's got 3 jobs in one on the sideline. And no one in this world can tell me that that's not an impact.
Sure.
In terms of, I can totally see him going like, okay, the pass rush is gaining my quarterback. It's my first big game. I'm gonna be a little conservative. I don't want to mess this up. And fortunately, it worked. It just worked.
It did work. And even if it didn't work, I could still understand it. It's just that it's not like they got a quarterback who's thrown 10 or 12 interceptions this year. It's a guy that hasn't thrown an interception against anyone that's not named Bowling Green. I know. And they're coming up on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and he can't complete an out. Of course he can.
Well, he was too. That's the thing. He was 7 for 8.
Yeah.
In the game. He was making the plays. People on Twitter were killing me with this. They're like, "Oh, JJ, let's compare JJ's stats versus Penn State versus Kyle McCord." I was like, "You can't even compare these games."
Yeah, well, that's just dumb.
I agree. I was like, "This is so stupid." Like, he threw the ball 8 times, and then they didn't throw the ball once in the second half. Like, what do you want?
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the most dominant win, obviously, is Georgia today.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think there's any other debate about that. I think the Michigan win's the most impressive, and because of the circumstances and how they won the game. But in terms of just dominance and who looked the best, quote unquote, I would say that's Georgia. And then Bama. That game's gonna be crazy. Bama and Georgia. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
You still got Bama?
I don't give up on my preseason picks unless I have to. So heck yeah.
You know what? Milroe is such an X factor that you just can't count him out, man. He's gonna give any defense he plays headaches and problems. Point blank period.
I'm not going to be crying if there's not a 2 SEC teams in the Final Four, but I think there probably should be.
There could be.
Of course there could be.
Yeah. If Bama wins, do you think they would still put Georgia in? I think they would.
Yeah.
They put Bama and Georgia. I don't see why they wouldn't.
Well, if Washington's undefeated, Florida State's undefeated, and you got a Big Ten champion.
Yeah, that's when I guess it would get tricky, and that's going to come down to. Yeah, I'm not going to guess what they're going to do. I'm not even going to try. But I can totally see them being like Georgia, They lost to Bama. I'm gonna say it's like a score loss. I could just see them being like, look, we think they're one of the 4 best teams. We're gonna put them in. Not the first.
We are losing you.
Okay. You hear me?
Not well.
Okay, I'll get going then, man. Enjoy your night.
I appreciate the call. Call back. We'll talk to you in a few days. All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got Sean on the line.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Oh, good. I just watched the Buckeyes conduct just very workmanlike. Almost looked like a walkthrough against MSU right there. I mean, it seems so like simple and easy.
Yeah. It was.
Get to halftime and, cash the check and just go home. Just play out the string. Yeah. It was.
Yeah. Anytime I see something like that and it's 21 like that and they finish with 38, it's pretty apparent.
Yeah.
They could have scored whatever. What crosses my mind during games like that is I would just be curious that if those coaches and players had an incentive to win by as many points as possible, I would just be curious. Like if you said, we will pay you $100 for every point you score, I would love to see how many points they could score.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if I was playing Madden with my with someone that wasn't very good or something, and it was just like, okay, you can beat me. Can you beat me by 70? Like, okay, let's try. Let's yeah. I mean that was yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's like kind of hard to take a lot away from that. I mean, like especially because like I felt like OSU matched it up with MSU so well. Like some of these other games, it's weird too. MSU, they've been horrendous against all like the tough teams they've played, but they've been like really competitive and in there. I mean, like they're not a downright horrible football team.
They're really not.
No.
They led Rutgers by 18 points in the fourth quarter. They led Iowa in the fourth quarter. They hung with just pretty much everyone except for, obviously they beat Nebraska last week and they got blasted by Michigan. They got blasted by Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, and like, does this give you any memories of like the 70s, early 80s right now when like there's this much of a stratification of the top teams and just the rest of the league?
Well, yeah, when it's those two especially.
And then now you throw Penn State in. Penn State would have been one of those teams back in those days too, right? If they would have been in the Big Ten.
Oh,
they would
sure.
have been. Yeah.
So
it would have been the Big Three and Little Eight. Right?
Penn State's not with the other two, and they're not with everyone else either.
No, but but they play real games against the other two.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, like that was a one-score game. I mean, it really was a one-score game.
Well, if James Franklin would just kick the extra point,
good God,
what in the world are you doing? It's only the second quarter,
right? And I mean, like it would make some sense if that was like. If you felt like there was a really like high percentage chance that you would get that, like I don't know how you would think that they in the first quarter they had first and goal from the 3, didn't move the ball at all, had to kick a field goal. Like you're probably at a disadvantage in that spot anyway. And
your quarterback is not. I know he had a good running game for him, but he's not a running threat. Number one, number two, he's not playing well. And you drop him back, like he's throwing the ball from like the 12 or 15 yard line. By the time you drop him all the way back, like he's having to make like a 25 or 30 yard throw to the end zone. It was dumb.
I mean, like watching him against both Ohio State and Michigan. I mean,
this.
That wasn't me.
No, that was this other window I had up.
I got you. But look, Adler, he gives me that rare feeling of like pity sometimes when I watch him in these pressure situations. Like you can almost see him in the pocket, like breaking down, like panicking in these moments against both Ohio State and Michigan. It's like, oh my goodness. And that fourth down throw, I mean, like what was that? Remember they went, I don't know why they went for it on fourth down in that situation. What?
And even the play before that, they had a 3rd and 6, and they had a well set up play. He had a clean pocket, and the receiver was coming across the middle, like right in front of him. Like
exactly.
He's like 12 yards away, right in front of him, and he throws it like way behind him.
Yeah.
And you're talking about who knows how many since last spring, who knows how many times Drew Aller has thrown that same exact pass, practice after workout after practice, spring practice, indoor workout, with a drag route right in front of him, and he throws it like way behind the guy. Yeah, and then the next play was that what you're talking about. He gets rushed, and he
throws it. It looks like his goal on that fourth down was to throw it as far away from anybody on the field. I mean, like literally. I mean, Superman probably wouldn't have been able to catch that pass if he was there.
Yes,
I mean,
he needed to hang the ball. He had like guys running down the sideline. Just hang it up as high as you can. Give him a chance.
Yeah, and maybe you draw a flag. Who knows?
Yeah, or maybe you get a great catch. It's about a 20% shot probably, but that was a 0% shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, like to see a guy like crumble in a situation like that, where I mean, I don't know if that's something on the coaching staff, but he obviously has not been ready for these moments in these big games. I mean, I think that's just very, very clear. I think he's got a lot of talent. I think he will be a good quarterback. I don't think you give up on him, but his performances in these games, I mean, like it has to be frustrating to watch if you're a Lions fan.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not giving up on him by any stretch of the imagination. He's 19 years old.
Mm-hmm. No, I posted on one of John D'Adamo's Twitters. I said this game did wonders for Sean Clifford's legacy. I mean, just okay.
There are much worse legacies than Sean Clifford. So I've got no issue with Sean Clifford. I always thought he was a good quarterback.
He was a good college quarterback.
He won. Man, what they go to 3 BCS? He went to 2 BCS bowl games, I guess, under his quarterbacking.
Well, the BCS didn't exist while he was there.
New Year's 6. Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a weird game all around. I mean, Michigan attempted one throw in the second half, ticky-tack PI call. And I mean, and Michigan outside of the two touchdown drives didn't produce like much of anything offensively today.
And they did not try either.
I mean, I don't know if they didn't try or if they thought that was just the most effective method.
Well, it's not like that they were kneeling down, but they ran 30 times in a row, which is completely unheard of.
I mean, that's just like a total disrespect to your opponent. It's like you have no chance to move the ball on us. So why are we going to take any risk?
We're okay with a 1-score lead. We can hold a 1-score lead with our defense and your lack of downfield passing. And so why risk having your defense, which is your better side of the football, possibly cause something to happen?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And listening to Michigan Man earlier, I do think some of that was informed by when they tried to do that in the first couple of series, when they tried a more conventional attack, they weren't doing well in pass protection at all against them. So they got to McCarthy a few times, and yeah, it's so I don't know. It's so weird because Penn State had one of the best run defenses in the country coming into today, but Michigan just plays a totally different brand of football than anyone else in the country. I mean, no one else, builds, has this kind of offensive line in the front where everyone's like 330 across the line, and they can really just push you and maul you. And I'm a little worried because I think that's a weakness for Ohio State. I saw Michigan State get a little bit of push in the power run game. I've seen Rutgers definitely did last week, and I've seen it all year. It's like, yeah, this team's not that great at stopping runs in between the tackles. And in Michigan, I mean, obviously they're very proficient at that. They can do it. They can bleed you all day, and I don't want a repeat of 2021.
Yeah, that was different than last year in certain respects, and it was Hassan Haskins, who's not going to outrun anybody to the end zone, but they just and it was. I remember that season in that, and the rush defensive issues being okay. Game 2 against Oregon was
all that eye candy, all that motion.
Well, yeah, it was all that exactly. It was all that motion, and the defense was completely fooled. The linebackers were fooled. How many running plays did Oregon, like just running backs, just running through gaping holes or running around that short left end? I don't know how many times they did that, and you wouldn't even see an Ohio State defender in the picture. But you get to the Michigan game, and it was like they were where they were supposed to be, and Michigan wasn't opening these gaping holes, and guys were in position. They were in their run. They were just getting pushed down the field.
It's just, I mean, it seems insane that can even happen in these days. I mean, I mean, strength and conditioning being what it should be. I mean, like you wouldn't think, linebackers and safeties at that level would just get run over, or defensive tackles like that. But I mean, like Penn State did for a couple drives today. Now, I mean, they really stiffened up in the second half. I mean, I think for about 3 drives there, Michigan only had 1 first down, and it was on that garbage defensive pass interference call.
I argued with a few people about that. And I understand that even the I think they brought the rules guy in, and he even defended it. But here's how I see that. Like, if the ball's on this side, so I'm the defender.
Yeah.
The receiver's here. The ball's thrown over here. I'm simply between the ball and the receiver, and I'm impeding his I'm impeding his progress, but don't I have better position on the ball than he does, and he runs into me to get to the ball? What?
I mean, I see this from time to time, and I'm like, you're just bailing the quarterback out for making a bad throw, for throwing to the defender's leverage side. I mean, obviously, if you throw the ball like very badly and accurately, your receiver is going to have to make like some sort of sudden break, and a lot of times that will create contact with you and the defender. It's not the defender's fault. The defender's playing it perfectly fine. I mean, like, it's just the fact that the ball was so off target, the receiver had to make such a drastic adjustment that happened. I mean, like, that's why I don't like those calls.
Now, if I recall, that didn't matter, though.
No, it didn't matter because they ended up punting. I mean, they ended up punting.
Yeah,
that drive. That was, but I mean, yeah, that was
Although it mattered 15 yards, but yeah, they still had to punt.
Yeah. So, all right. Want to touch on a couple things on the outside the Big Ten here. Nick Saban, where does this rank in his coaching performances? Because I don't think this Alabama team is special in many ways. I don't think they've got many great qualities, but they just keep. I mean, they're just improving all the time. I think this is his least talented team since probably the year he took over.
Well, you might be right, but all of those teams were three of the most talented teams in the country every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a very high bar.
And so this one is the fourth. I understand what you're saying, but we tend to, maybe some of us tend to look at past teams and past players in awe because we know how it ended for them. We know they went to the NFL and they became this or they became that. This team is loaded with NFL players.
Yeah. I mean, they are, a borderline top 5 talent team in the country for sure. But I mean, this was a team that had not only just as far as talent, but as far as structure. What? I'm sorry, what was that?
I think they're in the top 3.
Okay. That could very well be the case, but they had issues at quarterback along the offensive line. Like the whole offense wasn't working at all in the start of the season.
Well, since Najee Harris left, they've not had a great ground game from the running back position the last couple seasons. Number one.
Right.
Number two, you're right. Their wide receiver play, it's actually kind of come back to become a little bit better, but it's not Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Calvin Ridley. They don't have that guy. Now, defensively, I think they're pretty special.
Yeah, but I mean, Texas was really effective against them in that week, their first game. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I felt like this had one of the years that this could have been under lesser head coaches. I've seen this happen, like Bobby Bowden, Florida State teams, those Miami teams of like kind of the 2004, 2005 years. I've seen these kind of like dynasties just sort of crumble in moments like that, like where not everything's perfect and I mean, they've just come together and they're, like a legit threat now all of a sudden.
Yes,
they could win a national championship. They really could.
Yep.
And I would never have thought that.
And I understand that most people didn't see it. I'm not going to say I envisioned it in week 3, but I did predict it. I picked an Alabama-Ohio State national championship game, and I wasn't about to give up on it or give up on Bama just because we've seen this. We haven't seen them struggle like that very often, but I still had faith in the process.
Awesome. So just one last thought. The Washington Utah game. Did you get to watch much of that at all? Or
so that was at 3:30. I was watching Florida State Miami, and I was watching, what was the other game? Oh, I chose to watch Iowa and Rutgers. So I had 3 screens, and I had that on one screen, but I can't say that I really watched it.
Wait, were you paying more attention to Iowa Rutgers than Washington Utah?
Absolutely.
I mean, like, was there some sort of bet you had going on it? Like, was there some sort of
no bets?
Did you just sadistically enjoy watching just horrendous offense?
I was curious to watch that game. Yeah, I took more enjoyment watching that game than watching Washington and Utah play.
Yeah. So Washington, they're just they're a little I mean, they just don't have much outside of a dynamic passing game, really, do they?
Yeah, I really don't think so. I don't know. I think they rushed the ball pretty well today, and they did against USC, which everyone does against USC.
Yeah.
But I think they've been running the ball well.
Yeah, and but even the running game is sort of built off of that pass action. Like if you ever watch them, it's like it's always there's some sort of pass action from Penix. It's a lot of draws and a lot of like the run's almost a deceptive, deception part of their offense. I don't know if I've ever seen a team really like make a run and get into the playoffs being as one-dimensional as they are. I mean, they're very mediocre defensively. And, yeah, they're not going to line up and run it at anybody at all. So.
Yeah,
right.
I'd have to give that one some thought. All right, Sean.
Awesome.
Anything else, sir?
Just want to say, is JJ McCarthy for Heisman candidate? Is that completely over now? It has to be.
Well, today did nothing for him, but should it really be counted against him?
I don't know. The fact that you didn't do anything at all in one of your two big games of the year, and I don't think he had really. He shouldn't have had a candidacy coming into today.
Well, so if you consider,
we saw Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord's on no one's Heisman list, and I mean. He had it super easy today, which is how JJ's had it the whole year. I mean, and he went and lit it up, threw for 80% and 350 yards in 3 quarters or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
going into this weekend, your candidates are Penix, Nix, McCarthy, if you want to put him in there. I guess Jalen Milroe is playing his way into it. And so I don't see where those other guys, Jalen Milroe, obviously, but he's playing from behind, trying to get back into the race. But Penix was nothing special today, that's for sure.
He threw for like 350 yards.
Yeah.
I mean,
like it was well into the second half. He was like 13 of 27.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, like if you watch him, he's like, I mean, they're taking shots almost every play. I mean, they're there. He's not dinking and dunking, and he's not,
Sure.
I mean, like completion percentage is can be a misleading stat.
Oh, of course it can be, but
yeah,
I know he's really good, and he throws a pretty pass. I don't see him as the Heisman favorite right now. I would say based on what, like he's got great numbers because of the style of offense, but he's played some fairly shoddy games.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's got some duds in there for sure. But I mean, the guy I would give it to right now, I don't care that he's lost 3 games, is Jaden Daniels. I mean, it's not his fault. His defense is a piece of cheese.
Yeah, he put up a ton of points again tonight.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
for as much as Florida's not a great team, they're not giving up 52 points to anybody else.
No, they're not giving 600 yards, and he's doing it in a real fun, dynamic way. I mean, his talent's out there. So take care, Mark. Thanks for having me,
Sean. Appreciate it. Everyone, keep in mind that we've got the Big Ten Live show coming up Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, keep in mind that we will release the top 25 that actually makes sense. If it's in me, then I will work on it when we get done here tonight, and I'll release it in the morning. But typically, that hasn't happened, and I've gotten some sleep, like 3 hours, and then I work on it Sunday afternoon. So it'll be out sometime on Sunday, the top 25 that actually makes sense. And again, the Big Ten Live show. I don't know if anybody's going to be interested in this, but we will give it a shot. And I think it could be some good content. It hit me today. I thought, you know what? I release these instant analysis videos because my goal is at noon Eastern time, I'm watching 2 games at the same time, and I'll release those instant analysis videos. Then I'll do the same thing at 3:30, do the same thing in prime time, and there you go. Then I thought, there's all these other college football games and meaningful games. Like we got Oregon USC playing right now. Maybe we'll do like, and for stat nerds, we will do like a box score review analysis. And I could just go through the biggest games of the weekend, send those out on Sunday. So I will probably do that this Sunday, and we will see if you guys care to look at that. So I'll take some of the biggest games that I didn't see in college football, look over the box score, probably watch maybe the condensed highlights, and do my analysis that way. But we'll come up with a cute, clever little name for it, something to do with box scores or something. All right, we got Nick here who says, did you see the Memphis ref throw a flag and hit a player directly in the family jewels? Ouch. Nothing screams, quote, we hire part-time refs in a multi-billion-dollar sport more. Bunch of zebra clowns. Okay. All right. Well, I certainly would not want to be on the receiving end of that, for one thing. Secondly, though, I'm thinking that for all the flags that are thrown in every game in college football, which is what, 130 teams playing 13, 14, 15 games, that with 8, 10, 15, 20 penalties per game, at some point, something like that's going to happen. So, which is not nearly as bad as many of you will remember the Cleveland Browns offensive lineman. His nickname was Zeus, and I can't, Orlando Brown, right? Orlando Brown. This was about 10 years ago, maybe longer than that now, 15 years ago. Remember, he got hit in the eye? The flag went right into, so consider this. This is what an NFL official making a lot of money, $250,000 a year. This is what one of them did to a professional athlete in a billion-dollar industry that's much, of course, more lucrative than college football, watched by many more people, threw a flag that went through the opening in his face mask and hit him right in the eye and practically blinded him. If anyone remembers that. Anybody in the chat remember that one? Orlando Brown. All right. Then we've got awesome Clausen clips. Look at this super chat I made. Awesome. If you could make some more, that would be phenomenal. Appreciate that. Awesome Lawson clips. And we got Uncle Rico. Marvin Harrison Jr. moved into third for Heisman odds. Good to know. Maybe I'll do a Heisman video. Go Dogs is checking in here at the Voice of College Football. Go Dogs, what's going on tonight?
I'm really good, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Hey, so rumor is that Brock Bowers is from Napa, California, but I think he may actually be from Roswell, New Mexico, because that dude is an alien.
Yeah, he's pretty special.
He was injured on October 17th, and I'm checking my calendar here.
Yeah.
It's like 25 days later, and he's out there on every snap, catching passes, catching touchdowns, blocking, sticking, running routes. It's unbelievable. This guy isn't human. And he is, in my humble but correct opinion, the best player in college football. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is good. People were talking about Ollie Gordon for a little while, but today's game, ugh. And, there's a bunch of really good quarterbacks out there as well, Carson Beck being among them. But Brock Bowers is otherworldly, and I am so happy that he is back on the team and contributing able to contribute in his final home game in a Georgia uniform. That was awesome to watch.
Yeah, that's very cool. And if I was his head coach, I would be tempted to say, you know what? I know you think you can play, and you probably can, and that's incredible, but I don't want you to play yet because I don't want anything to go wrong. I want you to stay healthy for our playoff push. Well, I wouldn't phrase it like that, maybe. But they determined he's ready to go. And yeah, he was out there, and it was pretty remarkable to see that. And if somebody held a gun to my head, then, and I don't want anyone to do that anytime soon, but if they did and asked me who's the best player in college football, I would answer the same as you. Although football is a sport that I don't think there's truly a best player in the country because everybody's so different. Every position's so different. It's not basketball or baseball where everyone does the same thing.
Yeah, I understand that. And he's got no shot at winning the Heisman, which is unfortunate. But I don't know when I will see, as a Georgia fan, another player like him on our roster. It could be years and years before we have someone as special as Brock Bowers. But he wasn't really even that big of a contributor for Georgia tonight. But I thought that game was going to be a lot closer. And for the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a good game, one that was getting my intestines all twisted up. And then Georgia's defense finally reverted back to their old form and just shut Ole Miss down. I mean, they outscored them down the stretch 38-3. But the one thing I will say, which I'm really having trouble figuring out is, and I think this was mentioned on the ESPN broadcast, but Georgia continues to give up points on their opponent's opening drives, which they're, it hasn't affected them at all really lately. It looked, it was a problem in the early going with South Carolina and Auburn, but it's just strange to me that the defense seems to come out sluggish in the first quarter. What do you think about that?
Well, the first thing would be, I don't know if you caught us right off the top here, or if you checked out the video that I posted after the game, the instant analysis. But like you, I couldn't put into words, I couldn't correctly or accurately describe how impressed I was with Georgia tonight. They looked like the best team in the country and looked like maybe all those NFL draft selections from the 21 and 22 teams were allowed by their NFL teams to maybe suit up and come to Athens and play tonight, because it was just a thorough butt kicking after the first three drives. Like you say, that they allowed those 2 75-yard drives within the first three drives for Ole Miss. But this is a good Ole Miss team. Quinshon Judkins is a serious player, and they've got a couple wide receivers who I think have made the most ridiculous catches this season. One of them made it tonight, Jaden Wade, and they've got one of the great minds calling plays and scheming.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably what ran out, was he only had so many ways to devise an offense that could be adjusted to. And yeah, I was just floored. I was floored with the Georgia defense, especially they were missing a few pieces on defense, Jamon Dumas Johnson, and the offensive line. Again, regardless of what anyone says or who wins awards, this is now 3 years running, maybe more, that's been the best offensive line in the country, in my estimation.
Yeah, they've improved significantly from the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. They were average, and I wanted to see better play from them. And tonight, and last, I mean, they had some trouble against Missouri, but damn, Missouri, speaking of them, they look like a damn good football team too. I can't believe how badly they dismantled Tennessee. And I thought that they impressed me last week. And after Georgia played them, and after seeing what they were able to do to Georgia offensively and defensively, I came away thinking that they were a much better team than I did going into that game. And they just reiterated that in the Tennessee game tonight. But yeah, I mean, the offensive line for Georgia tonight played unbelievably, although I will take it a little bit with a grain of salt because Ole Miss's defense is not great, but the offensive line did exactly what you would expect an elite offensive line to do against a unit like Ole Miss's defense. So that was really awesome to see. But here's the thing that I am really I'm excited for the SEC championship game, and Bama wants Georgia. We all know that. And they're going to get their shot. And I hope that Georgia can do to them what they deserve to have done to them. But if Georgia goes 12-0 in the regular season for the third consecutive year and loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game, I think that they're going to get left out of the playoff with the way the rest of the teams around the Power Five are shaking out and their schedules. And I'm going to be beside myself because I think Georgia is one of the best 4 teams in the country, but they got to win. I don't think they have any margin for error. I mean, they can lose to Tennessee next week, and if they win the SEC championship game, they'll get in. But I don't think, even after tonight's performance, if Washington and Florida State continue to win, there's no room. There's not going to be any room for Georgia, and it's going to be a heartbreak because they really do deserve to be in the playoff this year. I've seen enough to know that they are one of the 4 best teams in the country, but they have no margin for error just because this season has too many undefeated teams left at this point.
Well, I would feel more confident about something happening to Washington than I would Florida State. I think Florida State's going to be able to survive, even though they're not a great football team, that they're going to be able to survive the ACC because they only have Florida and then they only have Louisville. And I know that there's an outside shot that North Carolina or somebody else, but basically it should be Louisville and Florida. So they're going to provide some resistance, but not enough. Washington's the team that still has to get through. I don't know who they've got next week, but they've got a date against Washington State. It's a Pac-12 championship game.
I think Washington is at Oregon State next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, well, that's serious business there. So they have 2 games that they have to deal with. I thought it was going to be a difficult game against Washington State, but they've completely folded. But they'll have 2 difficult games. So that's what you're hoping for, in addition to just obviously Georgia takes care of business.
Well, I honestly think that in a rematch between Oregon and Washington, that Oregon would be favored and should probably beat Washington.
Yeah, I agree.
But then they would get in. A one-loss Oregon team beating the only team that beat them in the regular season would get in.
Yeah.
Over a SEC championship game loser in Georgia. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm giving up on Georgia to lose in the SEC championship game. I'm just playing out the scenario because week 10 is almost in the books, and this is how it's shaping up. But it's just so irritating to think about that. I mean, I understand that you've got to take teams' records into account, and the Power Five is the Power Five. And if FSU goes undefeated, yes, they'll deserve a spot. But I don't think Florida State is ready for the playoff, and any team in the hunt right now for the playoffs would, I think, love if they could pick from anybody of the remaining contenders to make the playoff. I think all of them would pick Florida State as their opponent if they had their choice.
Well, I agree there. I believe that, again, if I had to pick one team, Georgia's the best team in the country. But I believe that Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and Michigan are the 4 best teams in the country. And I think Oregon and Washington and Florida State and Texas are really good teams. I just think that they're half a cut below, let's say.
Yeah. Well, Georgia's just got to take care of business. And just like always, the road to a championship is going to have to go through Alabama. And honestly, I don't think I would have it any other way. But
very nice.
Go Dogs. That's all I got, Mark. And I hope that you have a wonderful Sunday.
You as well. I appreciate it. All right. We will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Again, the Amazon link is in the description section. So please, when you shop on Amazon, use the link that we provide. I'm going to make a near promise that it's exactly going to be what you experience when you just use whatever link that you already use. So when you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide, as USC is trailing Oregon 29-14. Caleb Williams, I believe, just ran for a nice gain of 15 or 20 yards or something. No, maybe more like 3 or 4 yards. Okay, so got a key 3rd and 6 nearing the end of the third quarter here. Oregon leads by 15. All right, let's go to it. And I believe that our next caller is going to be mighty happy. Michael, welcome to the Voice of College Football, sir.
Hey, Mark, how you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing just fine. What's going on?
Not much. Today was crazy.
Yeah, it was a great day.
I would have never thought in my wildest dreams that Northwestern would have smacked Wisconsin around.
Well, I would agree with that. I did think they were going to win the game, but I certainly wasn't sure about it. But I was surprised when I flipped to that game, just because it was one of those dead spots in the schedule. Like, that was nowhere close to being on my radar, but it was one of those, where everybody's at halftime kind of deal. And I flipped to it, and I was like, "Wow!" And it was right when Wisconsin scored their touchdown, and I thought, "Oh, I was wondering, maybe there's 5 minutes left in the game and they've got time," but it was like 10 seconds left in the game, and I thought, it took Wisconsin. Wisconsin's at home playing Northwestern, and they scored one touchdown, meaningless touchdown, with 10 seconds left in the game. Wow.
Kind of makes me kind of nervous about next Saturday.
Well, Northwestern's had themselves quite a season.
Are they bowl
Good for them? They won their 5th game. They're 5-5.
5. Okay. Not bad. So I don't know if you got a chance to see the Purdue game and stuff like that. But before I go on, I got to give my 4 game ball. The number one game ball goes to Jalen Daniels, or Jane Daniels from LSU. 606 yards by himself tonight. Total offense. And the win against what was that?
Florida.
The second one goes to Marvin Harrison Jr. I turned that game off in the second quarter after he scored his 3rd touchdown. I thought he was going to have like 7 touchdowns tonight.
Well, they probably could have scored 7 touchdowns if they needed to.
Yeah. And then my 3rd and 4th game balls goes to Devin Mockney and Tyrone Tracy. Both of them had over 130 yards rushing and a couple touchdowns piece in the Purdue win today.
Well, I am guessing that most people across the country would have your first two selections and then not necessarily your third, but I understand you're a homer.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was a nice win for Purdue.
yeah.
This Minnesota team, I know they had that one nice game that they got helped up by the refs against Iowa, and that was their big win to put them in position to win the West, but they have not been a good team the entire season.
Yeah, and who was in Nebraska lost to today? Maryland, I think it was.
Yes.
And then, of course, Iowa pitching the shutout against Rutgers.
Yes.
So, was that on your list of games this week you picked?
Well, I picked Iowa to win, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I got to ask you this, game of the night, you think, in your opinion?
The game of the night. The best game?
Yeah.
Well, I think probably the best game, and I saw very little of it, but I did have it on, was North Carolina and Duke.
Yeah. But no, that was a good game. I went to a local game. Have you ever heard of the Monon Bell game before?
The who?
The Monon Bell game.
I have not.
I didn't know I didn't know if you ever heard of DePaul University in Wabash, being that you grew up in Ohio and stuff. And stuff. I'm not sure how far you are from Defiance or Denison when you was growing up.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where Denison is.
I think it's outside of Columbus, so I'm not sure. But no, that was a great game today too. First time ever went to overtime, double overtime. But anyway, no, I was just gonna say that like that. I gotta ask you this: what is Oregon's fixation with going for two every time?
I couldn't tell you. It seems to stay with every coach not named Mario Cristobal. But yeah, they like to go for two. Maybe they're not used to playing in championship games where it really matters if they win. I don't know.
Oh, and of course, Chip Kelly's the one that got that started back when he was there and stuff like that. But no, the more complete team tonight. Alabama in the route of Kentucky, Missouri pacing Tennessee, or Georgia's just making Ole Miss look like a high school team.
Well, the most impressive one is Georgia.
Mm-hmm. I would have to go with that one, though. Even though Missouri did look very good today, though.
Yes, it is Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. All right, last thing before I let you go. I still got McCarthy as a Heisman finalist.
Okay.
But I also got Penix. I got Marvin Harrison Jr. And I gotta get Bo Nix up there, man. Is he still one? Because people aren't talking much about him right now, are they? Is it Heisman?
Here they are.
Well, I haven't heard
Bo Nix?
stuff like that, but yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, who was it to beat Utah today?
Washington.
Yeah. Was you surprised?
No.
Yeah. Oh, last thing. Colorado going to win another game this year?
No.
I don't think so either. The Arizona match. They would have to have teams completely mud down for them to get to the Pac-12 championship, wouldn't they?
Let's see. With a win today, they moved to 5-2. They need USC to win this game tonight against Oregon. That's going to bunch all of them together with two losses.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have to sort through a bunch of tiebreakers. But if that happens, let's say USC comes back and wins tonight. They're 5-2.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually technically 6-2, but you get my gist. They all have two losses because USC actually has a bye the last week of the season. So anyway, you got USC, Oregon, Arizona. Utah lost its third game today, so they're done. It would be those three tied with two losses.
Mm-hmm.
So they would still have a shot. I don't know who they play next week, but they've got Arizona State the last weekend.
Hang on, I'm looking up there.
Arizona. Let's
next
see.
Game is going to be Utah or Arizona.
Okay.
So no, I was just wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, doesn't Oregon and USC have the tiebreaker against Arizona?
Well, USC does if it's head-to-head, but Arizona and Oregon did not play, and they will not play. And so if there's a three-way tie, then that head-to-head doesn't mean as much as it does in a two-way tie. We'd have to go through all the tiebreakers.
Yep. How impressed was you with Michigan today?
Very impressed.
Even though it was like 30 some odd run plays the rest of the game after the second quarter.
Yeah, well, that almost made it more impressive.
Yeah, I wonder what made him decide to. Just because once they got to the what was it, like 21-7 or something like that?
No, that started when it was 17-9.
Okay, and so they just said basically, game over. We're going to win, so we're just going to play smash mouth football.
They basically thought Penn State has no downfield passing game past 10 yards, so they're not going to run the ball down the field against us. And so actually Penn State's defense is a bigger threat to cause a mishap with a strip sack or a deflected pass, an interception, something than their offense is.
Yeah. Did you get to see any of the highlights of the Illinois IU game today?
I flipped by it and watched a couple plays. I didn't see the highlights.
Oh my God! How did IU blow that out? Never know. I don't even know how Tom Allen has a job right now.
Well, I'll have to go by and check it out. It was trying to think what the score. It was like 27-26 when I flipped it on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's right. Illinois won like 48-45 in OT, right?
Yeah. And then is Franklin on the hot seat now?
I don't believe so. He's winning too many games, and he's got a long, hefty contract.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a Jimbo Fisher type deal. But no, what is it with him? What is it with him? Though he every time he'll start good, and this time of year, every year is when Penn State starts to fall apart.
They have to run into, well, now Michigan, but they've always had to run into Ohio State. So I don't know. He's recruited at least as well, if not better, than Michigan. Now they haven't gone into the transfer portal with as much success as Michigan, and he's not recruiting as well as Ohio State, but he's still in the running. He's close.
Yeah.
I think it's more like, okay, today, number one, why is he going for a 2-point conversion on their first touchdown of the game?
Exactly.
And so then the rest of the game, they're chasing a point.
But I will say this though. I didn't see the picture. Did you see him where he looked like holding up one finger?
No.
I did see a picture of that where he was holding, and I guess someone else said go for two. I don't know. But it looked like he was holding just one finger up after that touchdown.
Well, then there's a serious problem if he's holding up one finger and they're going for two.
Yeah, not bad. Just as wondering stuff like that. And it looks like USC got a nice drive going, but we'll see what happens here. No, I was just wondering stuff. So, all right, like I said, can't wait for the top 25 that comes out tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
I just remembered, even though Florida State was in a dogfight today with Miami for most of their total and stuff like that, is it Louisville's increased chances of increasing and maybe beating them in the ACC championship? Or you still got about a 40%?
Louisville can beat them.
What percentage do you give them right now?
30.
What will make you to increase it even more?
For Louisville to keep looking better and Florida State to keep looking worse.
All right. Well, I don't know. They got Florida at the end of the season, right?
Yes.
And then who they got next week?
North Alabama.
Oh, so they're done with conference play then.
Yes.
And I think who's Louisville's got Miami next week. Somehow, some way, if Louisville slips up, will they still play in the ACC championship, or is it going to be a quagmire?
There is still a possibility that North Carolina in particular could go to the ACC championship game.
All right. And, of course, they already played Florida State this year, right? And they got beat?
No, they have not played.
Oh, no, they didn't play. No, I'm not. That was Duke. They played. All right. I was just wondering. All right, sir. I hope you got to spend some time with some veterans today. If you did, or at least said thank you for our service and stuff. But since it was Veterans Day yesterday.
Well, I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you.
Yep. Take
Yes,
care, man.
we appreciate our veterans. Absolutely.
All right. See you, Mark.
Yes, for sure. This Veterans Weekend, we absolutely want to make sure that we honor our veterans and thank our veterans for everything that they've done, everything that they are doing for both present and past veterans. I am looking at my predictions on the day. Let's see what we got here. May not be very pretty, but hey, I'll expose myself to ridicule. What do we have going on today? We've got. So, this is the fine Patreon page that you may want to consider joining us on Patreon /MarkRogersTV, or you get the same information, you get the same benefits by being a YouTube channel member right here. So, that's easier to go to. You could do that. Become a YouTube channel member right here. Just go to the front page and sign up there. Let's see how the picks did. I know I got off to a rough start. So in terms of straight up money line picks, Bama, Clemson, Michigan, all won. That's 3-0. Kansas, Nebraska lost. That's 3-2. Arizona 4-2. Kansas State 5-2. Florida State 6-2. UCF 7-2. Iowa, Washington, Mizzou 10-2. Oregon State 11-2. Georgia 12-2. Oklahoma 13-2. LSU 14-2. Texas 15-2. Texas A&M 16-2. Ohio State 17, North Carolina 18, and we'll leave this last game go. We don't know yet. 18-2 straight up. So that would do fairly well if you bet all those games against the money line, although you've got to do really well with the money line being what it is in many of these games. All right, against the spread, it started off very poorly for me. I could definitely kick myself for those first two selections. But anyway, 0-1, 0-2. Michigan makes 1-2. Kansas lost Jason Bean, and they lost that game, of course. So I'm 1-3, 1-4. Lost that by a half a point. Nebraska lost by 3. I had 2.5. So 1-4, 2-4, 2-5, 3-5, 4-5, 5-5. Washington won by 7, right? They didn't win by 8. Man, I lose one by a half and one by a point. So that brings me to 5-6, 6-6, 7-6, 8-6. West Virginia got clobbered 8-7. Oh shoot, Florida was up. I think they lost by 17, didn't they? They screwed me late with a late touchdown. So what is that? 8-8, 9-8. I'll have to look that one up. 10-8, 11-8. I think I went 11-9. So that barely wins money. So we're at 58% on the season going into today. So that's taken a bit of a hit. We'll see what happens with this USC final. And yeah, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Texas A&M was up big in that game. I'm sure that I lost that one. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, Mississippi State lost to Texas A&M 51-10. Whoo! Okay, should have stayed away from that game. 11-9 against the spread. 55%. Who is in the chat at this point? I can't even make it to the bottom of the chat. Yes, Ducks up 15 against USC 29-14. And have we started the fourth quarter? All right. Any requests, folks, for content this week? Do I do previews? I've got that idea about doing box score reviews. Also, I'm going to go through, I believe, conference championship races, division races, different scenarios that are still in play. FSU did not cover. No, I took Miami to cover. So I won that one. Yes, Mike, if we're doing the comparison between Ohio State and Michigan, let's see. Yeah, and I've done those videos in the past where I size up the comparison, the comp between the two going into the final game. I did that last year and the year before, and I also did that with a lot of the conference championship games because those are fun to look at. It's a really interesting comparison if you look at some of the like seeded on the same level teams, like a Utah versus an Oregon or a Georgia-Alabama kind of scenario. But I remember last year, the one that was completely not even close was predictably Michigan and Purdue. Wasn't even close. But, yeah, we'll have to look at that the last weekend of the season with Ohio State, Michigan. That's really the only one that comes into play in that same way as a outright division winner for that game. Can you break down like opponents? Yeah, I've done that in the past, Blue Wolverine, so we will do that. Maybe we should wait, though, because we've got a Minnesota game coming up for Ohio State. Michigan beat them 52-10. And we also have, of course, Michigan playing Maryland that Ohio State beat 37-17. I did it with yardage, third down conversion percentages. I did all that stuff. So, yeah, we will do that next week. And we're going to have 5, 6, 7 teams to compare, too. That's going to be a lengthy video. An exhaustive video, I should say. It's not necessarily going to be long, but it's going to take a long time to prepare all that information because you've got all 5 teams in the Big Ten East, Purdue, and Minnesota. Well, Mike, so you understand that this is funny just because Michigan cheated. I'm sorry to tell you that, but Michigan cheated. That's obvious. They did. Sorry. I shouldn't be sorry about it. I'm not the one that cheated. Michigan should be sorry. Now, did Jim Harbaugh know about it? Did the coordinators know about it? Did they cheat from top to bottom? We don't know. But somebody at Michigan cheated. And it's Michigan's fault that they hired a moron that went and cheated. So that's just the way it is. I'm sorry to tell Michigan fans this. Your team cheated. Now, does that mean everybody on the team cheated? No, but you hired somebody who cheated. So don't blame other people about it. You're going to get a reputation for cheating when you cheat. That's all there is to it. The other thing about comparing the statistics would be, I specifically did that in 2018, and Michigan had a huge advantage over their wins were much more dominant than Ohio State's wins against the same opponents, and then Ohio State went out there and cleaned their clock. So it's a fun exercise to go through. Does it really mean anything? Probably not, especially since we saw them both play Penn State, and it was pretty much the same game. You know, those were very similar games. And again, I'm not jumping to conclusions about Jim Harbaugh or anything else. That's not my point, because if that happened, then the cheating you talk about, then they should be banned for postseason. They should be vacating wins. They should do all of that if it's that deep. But if it's just this knucklehead that they hired, then there should be fines and suspensions and all that sort of business. And yeah. Oregon has scored to widen the lead. My hope is that USC can stay within 16.5 now. All right, folks. Your next stop will be with our USC and our Oregon post game. We've got one of each. We've got the Oregon guys. We've got the USC guys. You can join them on those respective channels after this one's finished here in about 45 minutes. And then let's see. Then we've got college football after dark coming up on Sunday night. And then you're going to see me next in a bunch of videos. So let's see, the last weekend of the season. Yeah, I'm not going to do any comparisons until we get this next game in. And let's see, who else plays the last weekend that could be a good comparison. Then I'll do the conference championship games, Ohio State, Michigan versus Iowa, and those comps. What do those comps look like right now? You got the Rutgers game, Iowa 22-zip, Ohio State 35-16, Michigan 31-7. You've got Michigan State, Michigan 49-zip, Ohio State 38-3, Iowa 26-16. You've got the Minnesota comp, which Iowa lost 12-10. Michigan 52-10. Ohio State has yet to play this week. We've got the Penn State comp. How about that Penn State comp? Ohio State beat them 20-12. Michigan beat them 24-15. Iowa lost 31-zip. So that comp for the Big Ten championship game is not going to be pretty for whoever comes out of the West, and most likely it's going to be Iowa. They've got a 2-game lead here. They would really have to blow it. There we go. There's Exploring with Ben. Join us for the Ducks post game on the Oregon channel following Oregon USC. There it is. We were just talking about that a couple minutes ago. Yes, the USC guys are on the USC channel. Ben and the guys covering the Ducks on the Oregon channel. We should put that. I don't think Ben can do it, so I will. We will put the link to the channel and I need to start working on division championship, conference championship scenarios, huh? All right, folks, I'm in the chat. TF! Thanks, man. Appreciate you being here. So check out Oregon Post. Here we go. We've got it. We're putting that right in the chat right now. We have now moved to the unscripted and extraneous portion of the show where we just sit and look at computer screens, I guess. All right, so we got check out our Oregon Post, check out USC Post. I'm throwing the link in the chat for that. Okay. And now Exploring with Ben, back to watching the game. Yes. Watch the rest of your route. And TF, thank you so much for gifting a Voice of College Football membership in which you could get my predictions, and you could get Steve Merrill's prediction each week from Wager Talk. He's 19-5 against the spread. Man, what is our YouTube channel membership fee? I believe it's like $4, $3 a month. And you get a pick every week that comes in at like 80% against the spread. There you go. All right, super chat. Mike, appreciate you being here. No dog in this fight. Cheating is what Ohio State and Urban Meyer did. Cheating, getting signs via good old boy network. Okay, butt sounding scout cheater. Huh? Okay. I really don't know what you're talking about. Urban Meyer, he's not been coaching for 5 years, but here's the deal. It's not about stealing signs. It's about the manner in which you receive the signs. That is the cheating. I think it's pretty simple. Yeah, it's pretty cut and dry. And we have talked about it extensively here, much more than I would like. So I want this to be done and figured out, and I want the truth to surface and justice to be served. And that would go for Michigan, Hawaii, Ohio State, Colorado State, whoever. Absolutely. There's only one reason to cheat, and that's to change the result of an outcome. All right. I think we've done enough. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, I'm going to be posting videos all over the place like nobody's business. That's my intent on Sunday and throughout the week. Of course, we've only got 2 more precious weekends of college football. So we hope you make it on back and certainly bring some folks with you. We want to grow and build the channel. We appreciate you all helping us with that venture as well. Make it on over to the USC post game, the Oregon post game, and I will see you live. Unless I decide to go live on Sunday, we shall see, but definitely Monday for the Big Ten live show at 6 Eastern. And Bilal says, Mark, don't waste your breath. Whomever doesn't see the evidence and proof by now, they basically just don't want to see them. Yeah. And again, that doesn't mean everyone cheated. That just means we know one knucklehead cheated. We have to find out if everybody else is cheating. Okay. See you soon. Thanks for being here.